I want to go over now to Se Hoon Kim. How does this, of course, the Ramayana has tremendous roots in all of Asia, right? Indo-Pacific and beyond. And specifically, I'd like to know how you think that this global phenomenon, which has become the reconstruction and the grand opening of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, how does this impact China and the rest of Asia?
Well, thank you for that question. And I think that question is extremely timely for the times that we're living in right now. And I'll tell you the reason why. It's very simple. You know, the current regime in China, which has been in power since the late 40s, and even way beyond, way before that, they have been focused on one thing within Asia, which is to change the narrative from the Western or worldly narrative to the Beijing centered narrative. So anything that goes within Asia, with pardon me, their ultimate goal is to get it run by the folks who are running things in Beijing, and 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 you might be asking, okay, well, what does the opening of the Ram Mandir have anything to do with that? It has a lot to do with it because number one, the everything that's associated with the Ram Mandir, the history, the culture, I mean, the societal impact that it had for thousands of years, has a lot more of a deeper root all over Asia than what the CCP has done in the last few decades, of course, and that logically makes more sense, right? But but in another sense, it's also making them extremely nervous because they're realizing that the stories like the Ramayana or the cultures that have affected places like Indonesia, the biggest Muslim country in the world, by the way, right? Is really uniting everyone together in this one temple. So it shifted from the Beijing focused in narrative to now the Ram Mandir or Ayodhya centered narrative that all folks are actually naturally falling into rather than through money or constant business or even military action, right? Which is something that we've seen, continuously in the last few years in the South China Sea. So, in a sense, you know, the Chinese have been engaged in such an aggression, to a point where a lot of the Southeast Asian countries are looking for an alternative, and I think India is becoming that alternative that they're looking for. It's not exactly the West. It's not definitely not China, but it's something that they're connected to. I mean, you have to remember a lot of these civilizations wouldn't exist without Sanskrit, without the scholars, the Buddhist and the Hindu scholars that have traveled to these areas, right? And it even extends to a place like the Philippines, for example, and it's although it is a predominantly a Catholic country, a lot of even some of the customs that are remaining today in some of the tribes within the Philippines, it's driven from Hindu, culture, and even just going to my homeland, Korea. It's impacted individuals like myself who actually share a heritage, a literal heritage in a place like Ayodhya. Short story, there is a very famous legend in Korea where a princess from Ayodhya received a revelation from a very heavenly being, to travel to a foreign land to meet her husband, and her husband ended up becoming the emperor of Southern Gaya Kingdom, which is where I am from, Busan in Korea, today. And so it has invoked, in a sense, this whole Bharat that has been hidden inside all of us. And maybe for Indonesians, it's the cultural background that they have, or even some of the religious impact that it had in place like Myanmar or even Cambodia. And it has also invoked this reminder to see how much we're connected, through folks like myself that has literal, connection there. And so the impact is huge. And I think the Ram Mandir temple, with the opening of the Ram Mandir temple, in a sense, it really shouldn't also be looked upon as a religious, issue. It really is not, because it's something that every country that has majority Christian to majority Muslims can relate to, because it is their heritage, like it or not, right? And so, it's naturally connected everybody together, probably for the first time in a very long time all over Asia. And it's I don't want to just call it an Indian operation, but really in a sense it's become everyone's operation together for the sake of unity in that part of the region. So the Chinese narrative that's been there is it's slowly fading, but in a more of a natural sense. So it's really interesting to see, and I think it's only going to grow from this point.